Hey there! Now we're going to talk about strings. We have discussed and seen strings while we were talking about the print statement. Now we're going to look at it in depth and we're going to see what we can actually achieve and the intricacies involved in printing statements. So if you want to print out or maybe write a sentence that you want to output, you can write like you should use a apostrophes. He is a data scientist. So it outputs that, but the output is also includes the apostrophes. So if you do not want the apostrophes over here, you should be able to use the print statement. He is a data scientist. Okay, so let me ask you a question. If you want to use different types of punctuation in a sentence and if you want to print them out, how would you do that? So let's try out an example so you can get a better idea of why it would be a problem if we have an apostrophe S in the statement. He's a data scientist and I want to print that out. So in this case, it doesn't seem to be a problem. We can do that easily. But if you remember that we can also use the single apostrophes for printing out statements. Let's put the apostrophe here. So now there is a problem over here. We cannot use single apostrophes to write down a sentence and use the single apostrophe within the sentence. Otherwise, it will only read this particular word because it only reads strings from starting of the apostrophe to the ending of the apostrophe. So the solution to this is that we use double quotes. Okay? So I guess that should solve the problem, right? But let's say if you want to write down a sentence that has quotes in it. For example, if you want to print out Newton's third law. Which states in apostrophes, every action has an equal but opposite reaction. Okay, so now you see it is not in the red color, which means this is the only string it's reading and it is not doing that. So now there is a problem. If you can see the problem, like if we're using double quotes, and so we cannot add a quote in our sentence if we're using double quotes to present a string. So this becomes a problem. How do we deal with this problem? It will give us an error and it will not run. So there must be a workaround to this. Now, I would suggest that you use apostrophes, single apostrophes for the string. But then you have another problem because if you're using single apostrophes, you cannot really use another apostrophe S in the sentence. So you see the problem is not solved yet, but Python has given us another function that enables us to overcome this problem. We call it the escape character. Okay, so the escape character is the backward slash, and we always use it after the apostrophe S, and we always use it before the apostrophe. For example, in this particular instance, I will add this over here. So now you can see this escape character tells Python that this apostrophe is not representing the string but actually is within the string. And now we have solved our problem. So the escape character enables us to write apostrophes and double inverted commas in our sentence and can also enables us to represent the string using single apostrophes. Okay, so let's look at other string functions which we can use. One string function we have already discussed before is the string concatenation. What string concatenation does is that it joins two strings together to form a one string. So hello and plus sign and world, but with a space, so we can get a space in the end. We have discussed this when we were talking about the print statements. Now we'll see a little bit more about the concatenation function. So we have also seen the endl function, or the new line character, which enables us to write a word in a new line. So that is \n, and here we go. Okay, just remove the space so that there is no indentation, and so we can use it to concatenate two strings and enables us to write the next word in the next line, and so on. Let's look at another concept called the string indexing. The string indexing is the representation of the string in the form of an array. So whenever we write a string, the string is stored in the form of an array. So you do not know what we mean by array yet. So we will say that each character has an index in the string, so which would enable us to access that particular character using indexing. So let's consider an example of hello world. The thing about string indexing is that the first letter starts from 0. So string indexing starts from 0 and not 1. And they always go to the one less than the length of the string. So this string has a length of 12, but when we use 0 indexing, when we start from 0, it will go up to the value of 11, which will represent the last character. So considering this example, we're going to initialize the variable hello world, which would store the string, and the first one is hello and the second word is world. We join it and it's the same thing. So if we want to talk about indexing, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the first character, which would start from 0, and the second one and the last one, which tells us that these characters over here can be accessed through numbers as well. So whenever we are going to access a character from a particular string, we're going to use this syntax. So the syntax I'm talking about is something like join. So start from 0. If you want to access hello O, so we're going to put 4 over here. Okay, and it's going to output us the character 4. So as you can see, the output over here is O. So now you can see we can use indexing to access different characters from the string, which is a powerful operation, and we will learn about this in a much better way when we will talk about iterations and when we will talk about loops. So you will understand why is it so important. Another concept that is a bit different from indexing is the string slicing. String slicing enables us to read these characters of the string from one starting point to the ending point. So the syntax for the string slicing is we use a start index and we use an end index, and the column separates them. So what it's telling is that we go from starting to the ending index and we read all the characters. So considering this example, if you want to read the first 5 characters, you will start from 0 and go till 5. So the difference about here is that each index is not actually representing the character, but the starting point of the character. So if you want to read the first 5 characters, you would have to write 0 to 5. So if I want to go and read only H using slicing, I would have to go for something like this. Starting point should be 0, and the only only character we're going to read is H, so the ending point should be 1. In this way we can read H. So I just read this and I'm going to use this. This is another very important operation when we're dealing with the extraction of a particular substring from a string like hello or world. We will use this technique, this method. And apart from that, when we will be studying about tensors, when we will study about arrays, when we will study about lists or numpy arrays, numpy lists, we will see that indexing and slicing is the most important concept, and it will help you in a lot when we're talking about data manipulation using different, even TensorFlow, in a low-level APIs of TensorFlow. When we're talking about data manipulation, these slicing concepts, these indexing concepts are very good to have an intuitive understanding of images of different types of data sets, and so it will help you a lot. So if you get an understanding of a basic sense of what's going on here, you can develop based on those concepts the further things we're going to learn in the course. One last thing we should talk about in the strings is another function of calculating the length of the string, and that is the length function represented by len. So if I pass this function any string, it will return the length of that string. So let's find it out. If I pass the string of, let's say we haven't initialized any, so let's first initialize the string. Let's say sentence. So let's write down a bigger sentence so we can understand. If you, rather than counting each character on the sentence, it becomes a lot of impractical. If we have this function, we can quickly find out the length of that sentence. Okay, so I'm gonna pass sentence. So it's hard to find out the length. We don't have the time. Let's quickly check it out. So 35 is the length of this sentence, which shows that there are 35 characters indexing from 0 to 34. Okay, so let's play around with all the concepts we've learned. Let's see. So we know that the sentence has a length of 35, and we know that the starting index point starts from 0 and it goes to up till 34. 0 to 34 like we saw before. So if you want to access the last character of the sentence, there are two ways for that. Either you find out the length and subtract 1, but you can do it in one way as well. So let's print the last character of this string. So I would write sentence, square brackets, and I will write length sentence minus 1. So this would return me 35, and minus 1 would make it 34, and 34 is the last index of the last character. So okay, so something's wrong. What did I do wrong? Okay, now this is a problem that you get when you do not mention the exact variable name. It says that the variable is not defined, which means that I made a spelling mistake in this variable. Okay, so let's do it again. And the last character is L, and that is the last character. So this becomes quite handy when you're iterating through the whole string, and it makes the function more dynamic. Rather than using constants, we should always use dynamic values, which would show that even I change this particular string, I do not have to change the code beneath it. The code shall stay the same, and it will still give me the last character. But if I had used the value of 35, which means that I have made my code rather, say, not so robust or dynamic to the changing inputs, and that is a bad programming practice. So we should always make our code dynamic, so that the inputs or the outputs change. The code should not go any change, or at least should go the minimum change.